guys, it's Derin here and welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to be sharing some last minute revision tips that you can use for your GCSEs or for your A-levels, because if you've looked at the time then you've realised that it's April and so exams are less than a month away, which is absolutely crazy. And so I'm hoping that most of us have started revision by now, but if not, or even if you have and you're just feeling a little bit stressed out in terms of time, then in today's video I've put together some of my most crucial tips that I've learned through revising, which are really good if you're short for time. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and before I get started, if you're new to my channel, definitely make sure to hit the subscribe button down below so that you'll get an update every time I post a new video. And so without further ado, let's just go ahead and get started. So the first thing which I'm going to share with you guys in this video is actually a technique, and this technique is called the scribble technique. And so how the scribble technique works is by you taking your textbook, so this is just my biology textbook for example, and then opening up the topic that you want to revise. Then what you want to do is open up 1 to 2 sides in your textbook and just really concentrate and focus and just read the 2 sides. Don't make any notes, just spend your time focusing, reading all of the information on those 1 to 2 sides. Then what you want to do is shut the textbook and get out a scrap piece of paper, scribble down literally every single thing you can remember from what you've just read on that page. And then once you finish writing down all of the information that you've remembered, which if you have been concentrating properly or really focused, then you probably remembered about 90% of it. So when you do this technique you need to be in silence, like by yourself, isolated. Then once you've finished writing all of that down, you want to open up the textbook back to those 1 to 2 sides and then just read all of the things that you've forgotten or perhaps you've written wrong. And then what I like to do is just take another coloured pen and write down all of the things that I got wrong, but usually if I'm concentrating properly I've only gotten about 1 or 2 things wrong. And so because I've only gotten such a small amount of wrong in comparison to the large amount which I remembered, when you come back to revising that topic you're always going to remember those 1 or 2 things that you forgot, because it will probably end up like frustrating you, or it's just going to stick in your head because you got it wrong that first time. And so I find this technique so helpful and so effective, because the whole purpose of it is to absorb information into your head and absorb it as knowledge, in opposed to just making really pretty notes that when you're writing you might not necessarily be taking in. And so particularly as we only have a few weeks until exams, rather than spending a lot of time making notes which might not be really helpful for you, especially if you don't take it in as you're writing them, then I definitely recommend using this scribble technique, because once you have done this method it literally goes into your head. And the person who I actually learnt this method from got 97% in all of their biology modules from using this technique. So I really think it's something worth trying out if you're short for time, and particularly for subjects that are heavily factual based and you can just revise straight from the textbook. The second thing which I hope everyone is doing is past papers, and I feel like this is so important in terms of revision, because whilst you can just spend ages literally memorising the entire textbook, there's nothing better than doing past papers, because they've come straight from the exam board, so literally you'll get an idea of what your exam will be like, you'll be able to understand the exam format, and a lot of exam boards tend to repeat questions over the years. So if you have done past papers, or if you're doing past papers, then you'll actually notice a pattern of some questions that tend to repeat itself. And so I feel like doing past papers is so important in terms of equipping you properly for your exam and just ensuring that you're not stressed out when you walk in there, because you'll kind of know what to expect. And I feel like if you are really short for time in terms of like note making or understanding your content, then I would just jump straight to past papers, because it tests most of the specification. But if you're doing most of the past papers, then that will act as a form of revision. So if it's like 2 weeks before your exam and you still haven't finished the content, I just go straight to past papers. Another thing about past papers is that if you're doing like a maths past paper for example, and you know you can answer indices, like you can answer like the first 6 questions, but then every time you get to like the 8th or the 9th question you always lose marks, then rather than you wasting tons of time going through the questions 1 to 6 when you know that you're going to get it right, obviously I still recommend you doing them for practice, but I'd recommend going straight into questions 7, 8, 9, 10 so that you can actually focus on trying to get those questions right, because they're usually worth the most marks and they're most challenging most of the time. So if you are struggling with those questions, then I recommend looking up work solutions to them. You can find tons of work solutions to papers online or on YouTube, and so that will help you more than just spending a lot of time doing the ones that you can easily do. And I feel like this is really important in boosting your grades, and it's something that I've learnt because it makes your time a lot more productive, because when you're revising you'll be spending time focusing on the things that you don't know in opposed to the things that you do know. And so I definitely recommend doing this. The third tip that I want to share with you guys is something that I was actually doing subconsciously last year, and that was actually doing group revision sessions with my friends every morning before an exam. Because what what I learned from this is that everyone revises from their own material. So like for example, I might be revising from this textbook, whilst one of my friends might be revising from class notes, and then another person might be revising from a revision guide. So when we came together to do these group revision sessions, what I'd realised was that I'd end up learning something about that topic that I did not know before. And that wasn't because I didn't revise my textbook properly, it was because her textbook might have had extra information, or my textbook might have had some interesting facts or some interesting ways of learning the facts. So I found that really helpful when we came together and combined all of the different facts that we'd learnt from our own revision. And so before those revision sessions, whilst we might have thought, oh, like we don't even need to do this, like we've already revised, I found it so helpful because at the end of each session we did end up learning something that we didn't know before. And then surprisingly, the things that we learned in that revision session that we didn't know before actually came up in the exams. We just used to go to Starbucks and just sit there for about an hour or two and just go over the entire specification, and I really felt that this was helpful. So I definitely recommend you guys trying that out. Okay, so that is basically the end of today's video. I really hope that you guys learned some new tips, and if you did, then definitely hit the thumbs up button. If you guys have any of your own tips, then I'd love if you'd leave a comment down below so you can share them. And if you guys have any more questions, then definitely feel free to message me on any of my social networking sites. I'll have them all linked down below in the description box. Just wanted to say again a massive thank you for all of the support you guys gave me on like my GCSE video. I can't believe it's at like 30,000 views. Hopefully, fingers crossed, my AS one will be even better, but who knows, we'll see. If you guys have any video requests, then also let me know in the comments. So that is all for today, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!